introduce our authors for this evening. I'm going to start with Sam Lansky, who's a journalist, author, and editor. His work has appeared in New York Magazine, The Atlantic, Esquire, Out, and Grantland. His books include the memoir, The Gilded Razor, the novel, Broken People. He is currently the West Coast editor of Time Magazine. Please welcome Sam Lansky. Greg Mania is a writer, comedian, and award-winning screenwriter based in New York City. His words have been published in The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, O, The Oprah Magazine, Paper, HuffPost, Out, Bomb, Electric Literature, among international and online print platforms. His debut memoir from Clash Books, Born to be Public, is the reason that we're here this evening. So please join me in welcoming Greg Mania.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Sam?
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so excited. Thank you, Greg, for asking me to be a part of this. The most important thing that I want to point out just to open is that when I turn my head, you can see my ring light in the reflection behind me. So I'm just going to try and keep myself focused here. But if you notice it, just like, I'm sorry in advance. But we're not here to talk about that.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize for that.
Beauty doesn't come cheap. We're here to talk about Born to be Public, the incredible debut memoir by Greg Mania, my friend, who but now I've been feeling so conflicted about the pronunciation of your name after reading your book. It brought me into the thick of it. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. The first thing I wanna say is if you haven't read Greg's book yet, it is an absolute delight. It is funny, it is electric, it is engaging, it has so much wonderful character and warmth, and it's also a really, really vividly rendered portrait of New York in the sort of aughts and noughts that brought me back to my years living in New York in a way that I hadn't thought about in a minute, and I just found super, super, super resonant. So I want to talk about all of that too, and we're gonna get into that. But first, Greg, talk to me about your name, because there's a whole piece about this in the book, and I feel like it's super important, and I feel like we should, for the group, contextualize this up top.
Yeah, let's talk it out. Let's figure out how are you feeling about it?
Well, I'm feeling great. I want to know how you're feeling about it, because in the book, you tell the story of drawing this sort of distinction between the traditional pronunciation of your name and the mania that you came to inhabit as part of your persona. Can you talk a little bit about, can you just give us broad strokes of that story? I want to hear it. I want to hear it again directly from you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's like a nickname. If you want to call it a stage name or a moniker, you can. So I mean, it's always been commonly mispronounced as Mania. It's Mania for like those who want to go the properly, pronounced way. But for the longest time, and it's a Polish name. It's a Polish-German hybrid name, and yeah, for the longest time growing up, like my parents, myself, my brother, we would always be correcting doctors and people at the DMV or wherever else you get your name called. And, it'd always be Mania. And when I moved to New York to go to college, I started exploring like the downtown Lower East Side situation. And, well, actually before that, I came across this woman named Lady Starlight on MySpace, the golden era of the internet, in my opinion. So I came across this woman named Lady Starlight who was like, had bleach blonde, like roots and like black tips, and was like lighting hairspray on fire. And then I saw her friend named Breedlove, and I'm like, who are these weird folks? Like, I'm very intrigued, and I'm kind of very much into it. And I turned 18 and I started like, moseying my way down into like those staples that are slowly leaving us. So the Bowery Ballroom, which is thank God still there. But yeah, the night that I sort of just let it become Greg Mania was the night that I had tickets to this concert for this band called Semi-Precious Weapons that used to be led by Justin Tranter. So for anyone who's familiar with Justin Tranter, he's a songwriter. He's co-written hits like Justin Bieber's Sorry, and he's just a super, super giant megastar songwriter. But back in like 2008, 2009, 2010, he was in his glam rock band and they were playing Battery Ballroom, and I had tickets, and all the people that I befriended on MySpace and Facebook, like Lady Starlight and this woman named Darian Darling was gonna be there. And, you know, I'm this 18-year-old from New Jersey, still like have one foot in the closet and just want to get a taste of like real life. And I was out and I just remember seeing like this colorful, electric, like cast of characters, and the room was just like very palpable. I wrote about this, like it felt like history was being written in front of my very eyes, and I wanted my space in it. So Darian Darling, who knew me at the time from the internet, came up to me and she was like, "Oh, are you Greg Mania, the kid with the hair from Facebook?" And I was almost like, "Oh, it's Mania," but I was like, wait a minute, Darian Darling, Lady Starlight, there's a woman who just shot to fame named Lady Gaga, Greg Mania, that might actually work in my benefit. So I didn't correct her, and I went with that nickname, and it's been like that ever since.
Can you talk a little bit about the sort of journey that you've had from, you know, this origin story sort of in this New York nightlife world and this sort of like downtown society world, now to having this book being out in the world? I mean, how did we sort of get from point A to point B creatively on a craft writing level?
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, this was like really the apex of blogging and Blogger and WordPress. So I just sort of followed in the footsteps of comedy writers that I really loved, like Megan Amram had Tumblr, and I just really loved the voice that came through. And Samantha Irby still has Bitches Gotta Eat, which really sort of springboarded her into, you know, her career now. But I was really into sort of that confessional style of writing because I really didn't have that outlet growing up, and I really just sort of wanted to deposit all of the frenetic feelings I've had about identity and being a queer man, and, you know, straddling the line of femininity and masculinity, and just exploring that. And I put that all out onto the internet like a giant glorified diary, as one is wont to do. And I just started blogging, and I didn't think anything of it. People told me I was funny, and I just wanted to make my friends laugh on campus, and that's all I wanted to do. But then I started to take it more seriously, and after I graduated from Hofstra, I was like, oh, maybe I can like put together vignettes and all of these funny stories about nightlife and being a giant blubbering idiot with men and drugs and alcohol, all these like things that I was finding myself, you know, participating in. And so I moved back to New York in 2015. I got my first apartment in Harlem and started going to grad school at the new school. And I was like slowly putting together these stories. And then I was like, well, I can't really share, you know, these like hyper glamorous aspects about my life without also sharing the dark underbelly. There's mental illness. There's things that I've never told anyone about. Like, I didn't even tell my parents until they read the book. I was like, you know what, just read the whole thing. I was going to warn them, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to let you take what you want from it, and then we can talk about it if you want. And my mom, actually, I was visiting my parents 2 weeks ago. I came home, and my mom came in my room, and she was like, I read your book. I read it twice, and I loved it. But are you still on drugs? And I was like, that's your takeaway? But also, that's a hilarious, like, blurb. So move over Oprah. I'm going to put that on the paperback blurb. Yeah. So, and the book just grew up with me. Like, I didn't intend to write a memoir. I didn't think I was sophisticated enough to write a memoir. Like, it just sort of turned into that. And I'm like, plus, I mean, I was naive. I was like, I'm only 25 at the time. I'm 29 now. Like, what kind of a 25-year-old writes a memoir? But I fell into that, like, confusion about autobiography versus memoir. So now when people are like, oh, you wrote a memoir, you're only so-and-so years old. I'm like, no, you're thinking autobiography. If I wrote an autobiography, you would have to like talk to me about that. But memoir obviously is a snapshot of an era of your life. It's literally quite in the word origin of memory. So yeah, it just turned into a memoir, not by accident, but also kind of by accident. And here we are.
How have you sort of navigated the very strange particularities of doing book promo in pandemic land. How has that been for you, or how has it kind of reshaped, you know, your thinking about the book and how you share it with people?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm a totally retired extrovert. Like, I really don't, I mean, even before the pandemic, I still have been going to bed at like 9 p.m. Like, old reruns of Alias on my iPad, a strongly brewed cup of chamomile is my like jam period. But it's been great. Like, personally, this has been like my dream come true. Like, the fact that I mean, I get it, it's fucking hard. Like, you released your book, I think that was like starting, no, you released like,
Yeah, it was sort of, we were in the thick of it.
you were in the thick of it, right? Okay, so yeah, it's fucking hard and it's stressful because you want to like go out and like be in an actual bookstore and meet people, and that I love. I love meeting new people and all of that's, you know, that's an experience. But personally, as someone with an anxiety disorder, this is extremely fine for me. Like, I don't have to travel. I like traveling in
Not
theory.
exacerbating your anxiety?
Huh?
It's not making your anxiety worse?
No, this is great. Sam, I got up an hour ago. Like, this is one, like, if I was actually in San Francisco and we were going to this bookstore, which would be great because I get to see you in person and like hang out with you. But like, that's like 2 days worth of prep for me to like get
Yeah.
used to the idea of like being somewhere and seeing people. But this has been fine. Like, there have been, you know, there's its own challenges and struggles with releasing a book in this time. But personally, for me, this has been a dream come true. But also, like, there's added benefits. Like, my dream was to launch at my favorite bookstore with one of my closest friends, and I get to do events with Lindy West, who's in Seattle, and I can do an event with her at Skylight over Zoom, and I get to hang out with you for an hour. So it's actually, there's been like some blessings in disguise.
Good. That's
Yeah.
good to hear. So I think you write so kind of beautifully and vividly about your childhood and your family, and you know the experience of being a first generation immigrant, and can you talk a little bit about that and how that sort of shaped you into where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's been such a big part of, you know, my story. It's the bedrock of who I am. And just growing up in this very Polish household has been, you know, it sets the stage for everything. I can't experience anything in my life without looking through that prism of growing up Polish. Like, I didn't even speak English when I first started talking. Like, I was in ESL for a few years, and then I had to sort of learn the language and the culture. I remember like the first time, my first like memory of Halloween, I was like, why is everyone dressed up and acting like an idiot and trying to scare me? And I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like, in America, you get candy for this. I'm so fucking in. Um, and that's just sort of how I grew up. It was really just like really consuming. Like, my mom learned English watching General Hospital every day. And that I started watching General Hospital. And I got this flair for like this dramatic, like, you know, anything that's like formative for a young closeted, you know, gay dude. But yeah, it's been like, it's something that I always look back on because it always influences whatever I do down the line. Like, now, you know, I'm growing up and I'm sort of really learning what my convictions are and what my truths are, separate from what my parents grew up with. And that's something that I've been sort of discovering now. I mean, definitely as my parents are like 70 now, I'm approaching 30. I mean, I was literally living with them for months back in March because I left New York because I didn't feel comfortable having my parents. I mean, we're all high risk. I have asthma. My body's rotting as we speak. It's trash. My parents are like, I was terrified of them going to the grocery store. So I went down to Jersey after quarantining here, and I lived with them. I ended up staying there for 3 months until July, and just living with them again as they approach a new era in their lives. They're turning 70. I'm turning 30. My brother turned 40 in quarantine. We're all in these different parts of our lives. And I mean, it was not fucking easy. It was like a nightmare, but it was also very enlightening. Like, I was like, it's like I met them again as people in different stages of their lives. So, I mean, it's always something that comes back to me. I mean, right, that's your childhood. It's always going to somehow affect you in any, state that you're in.
One thing that I really responded to in this book is you wrote about something that I'd almost forgotten about, which I also used to do, which was cultivating relationships with people online, on social media, in the sort of like proto days of the internet and of social media, from like MySpace to Facebook. And I'd sort of forgotten that like that was something that I used to like take a lot of like I don't know if pride is the right word, but it's something that I like used to derive a sense of kind of self and identity and value from. Like I remember very clearly when, some specific, like, a DJ who is not like mainstream celebrity, but who like was meaningful to me, commented on my post or like responded to a message or something. And like, cultivating these networks of people who maybe weren't like the most famous people in the world, but had this sort of cultural cachet or currency to me in my universe was really significant to me. I hadn't thought about that, but you really capture that very well. Can you talk about how that sort of networking piece helped sort of get you where you are and why that's an important part of the story?
Yeah, I mean, that like professionally, I think you're talking about the one where I like went to a mixer with like a bunch of reputable humor writers for a publication. And just failed like horribly. That for me, like, I mean, as we sort of find ourselves in communities, both on and offline, I feel like we just tend to gravitate towards like-minded people and with similar interests. And I mean, and it doesn't have to matter where you are geographically. I mean, it's just sort of how I've always been able to communicate. I mean, like writing as a medium, both in a book and online, that's like the most unfettered version of me that you can get. And I'm just more comfortable, conveying what I have to convey through the written word. And, with platforms like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, Twitter specifically, which was really springboarded so many people into cultural tastemakers. You have Rob Delaney, you have Melissa Broder, who's the writer behind So Sad Today, which has like almost 1 million people following, and she's written books, and I've been a fan of hers for like 10 years now almost. And there's all these different other writers who've just really used this platform to like create this, they've honed their voice on it, and that's just something I've always admired. I've always wanted to like get attention but not have it directly on me. Like I've always felt really uncomfortable being like, even doing this tour, I'm like, do we have to talk about me? Like I'd rather talk about you. But the internet sort of gives you that, you have one foot behind the curtain, but it's also like part of you in front of the spotlight, and you can sort of choose what you expose people to and what you don't expose people to. So that's something I really loved and gravitated towards. And I could sort of learn how to story tell on a micro level, and using Twitter to like really work on my joke structure and sort of shy away from like having the punchline at the end. I love that we can sort of, change the beat or structure of a joke in such a short amount, with brevity. So that's something I just use to my advantage. And that's how blogging got me into my first internship. And then I sort of worked on building my credentials and slowly starting to network and pull out. But then came the time where I had to actually network and meet people in my industry. And sometimes it didn't go the way that I wanted to, because, when you present yourself in person, sometimes, more times than not, you're going to get someone that's maybe not, it's going to be always incongruous. I think there's always a part where you maybe aren't presenting your true self online. And I think, it's up to the person to present what they want to present, especially in a professional setting. So I don't know if I did it well, like, especially as like an up and coming writer. I still feel like weird meeting like other like Sam Lansky and like Sam Irby. Like, you two are my friends, but I also like look up to you and I admire you. And so for me, it's like, I feel like I need to really, there's like a social pressure to perform. and be someone that you want to hang out with. And that for me is something that I've had to like learn to deal with over the years. And now I'm a bit better. I'm not as insecure anymore. I have a bit of a more of a firm foundation of who I am and what I want to do as an author. And I think, but that's, you know, those are just growing pains for me, I think.
What is the difference between you online and you IRL? And what is the difference between me online and me IRL? I want answers to both of these questions.
Oh my God. Okay, Christian Amanpour, calm down. Geez, you're making me really think. Okay.
I want this to be challenging. I want this to be stimulating. Let's go.
I know. This is, I mean, fuck me for choosing to do with like a journalist who asks like,
sorry. Yes.
I just want to talk about Applebee's, and here you are.
I'm gonna ask you about Applebee's after this.
I'm trying to bring you into the gutter with me where I belong.
I'll join you there. I will meet you there. I will.
Okay, fine, deal. But yeah, I mean, that it comes back to the name, like Greg Mania. Like for a long time, I'm like, people are expecting this over the top, like 11-inch mohawk, wild, over the top person. And I got sick of it. I was like, I don't want to be Greg Mania anymore. So I literally like shaved my hair, like dyed it black as like a physical manifestation, or like a physical rejection of this pressure to perform. But then like I came back to being blonde, and like I just sort of feel like I married Greg Mania and Greg Mania because I felt that there was a disconnect for so long. And now I just feel more secure. Like now I feel like when I, you know, online, like I like to have this character, this like extended version of myself that I was maybe 24/7 back, you know, maybe a few years ago. But now it's like, you know, I share my writing, I share my interviews, I share humor pieces. Like for a long time, I called what I did performative because I really liked the idea of performing as this character, doing this shtick, doing things that like seminal comedians, like I wrote about Phyllis Diller doing this. She had a character on stage, and when she went off stage, she was a philanthropist, she was a thinker, she was an author, she was a poet. Like I loved having that control. And now I feel a bit more balanced and centered. Like I liked having this character to perform as, and I always like returning to that, but I don't feel that pressure anymore. Like if I'm not feeling up to it, like I don't feel like writing a joke in a day, like I don't do it. I don't push myself to do that anymore. I really take a step back, and I try to be the most authentic version as I can be in the medium that you see me in. So, and I like to think that I'm pretty much, you're what you see is what you get, I think. I don't know. That's the jury's still out on that.
Great. Okay, now do me.
Okay, fine. I've known who you were, and then I was like, okay, he has a second book coming out. Should I ask him if he wants to be interviewed? And I was like super nervous because like you hear Time editor, and this is me being like a total dork, like, but I've met my closest friends like doing this. Like Lindy West, I was like, hey, like, I like slipped into her DMs. I'm like, hey, can I do an interview with you? I mean, this is like way before. This is like back when she put out Shrill. And then I don't know, it was very organic. But with you, like, I just took a chance, and I think I reached out to you directly. I was like, I'm just gonna fucking do it. Like, why not? Like, I really wanted to like talk to you and like meet you because, you know, I found you very intriguing and electrifying. And I really wanted to, give yourself a little, I don't know. But like a few years ago, I would have never done that. Yeah. Like, now I feel more comfortable. I'm like, okay, I'm a good interviewer. I can really sort of put a spin on an author that I admire and sort of give them a press with an edge, because I like to ask questions that are maybe a little bit unorthodox and fun, because I've always loved how, and this is something that Joan Rivers did. I always like to go back to my like comedic mentors as a kid. Like Joan Rivers did that on the red carpet. She carved her space by asking celebrities ridiculous questions. And I love that. So I want to do that as an interviewer. I love like meeting different authors who write different genres, and, you know, throwing a lighthearted curveball once in a while to get, you know, something out of you. And I thought I could do that with you. And I finally was like, you know what, you know, I think we could really put something special together. And And also, I just really wanted to meet you because I was a giant fan. So
Well, you did a great interview, so I will tell you that. And I'm
thank you.
trying to return the favor and meet you halfway in
I
this.
mean, no, you're upstaging
Oh,
me and I don't appreciate it.
I stole the spotlight. I'm so sorry. I stole your thunder away from you. Buy it, buy it. So I think it's interesting, and I think you talk about it really smartly. This sort of phenomenon of like establishing yourself creatively and professionally, and then you stop thinking of people as like sort of above you and start thinking of them as peers. You know, you're all people with a
Right.
platform, and you're all people who are making stuff, and you're all people
Yeah.
who are creative, and there's a kind of mutual interplay there. And I think it's a really gratifying kind of boosting thing when that happens. When do you think that kind of like clicked for you, that you were sort of like, oh, like I'm in, um, even if I still have like some residual imposter syndrome stuff, like I can sort of like play in this league and like connect with people on this level?
Uh, like yesterday. Like, it was fairly recent. Like, I
Okay.
still get that way. It depends on the day. Like, I think now I sort of recognize that in that voice, that imposter. And yeah, I'm not immune to it. I haven't found any sort of like magical how to and how to sort of snuff that voice out. But
Will you send it to me if you find it?
what's that?
Will you send it to me if you find it? The magical.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a wiki how. I've tried, but I think I don't know. I try to just recognize it. Like I try to recognize when that voice is like trying to tell me that I'm not like worthy enough to be on a panel with like I did a series of workshops this summer, and it was ready. It was Roxane Gay, Phoebe Robinson, Rachel Cargill, and then Porchie Sakakpour, and then me. I'm like, why? Like,
Very good company.
I'm like, there's a typo in there somewhere, and someone's gonna get fired because of me. But I was like, no, like, I think I have something to offer. Like, I'm not as smart as Roxanne. Please, please, no. But like, maybe there's something I can offer as like a nonfiction writer that I can sort of maybe I have something like give back to like the writing community. And I sort of told myself like, hey, like if you care about what you're doing and what you have to say, someone else will care too. And if you're lucky, it will come in like droves. But yeah, it's just something that I've come to recognize. I'm not as hard on myself anymore. Like, yeah, I want to think of you and like other people that I admire and like fan over as peers because I find that I'm allowed to tell myself that I deserve that and like I've worked my ass off to get here and like have been through some shit. And I think that for me is just a good enough starting point to like really go for it. Cause I just feel like I'm getting started right now. Like
Yeah.
I've also like, and this is something my therapist told me the other day. We're gonna go there. She was like, you need to like print out the things that like you're proud of and like go like a tangible like portfolio. Cause I told her this is so okay. So
Say
I
it.
wrote
Say it. Say
this
it.
is okay. You know how like sometimes people say to like write something down to like manifest it. Okay, so I wrote down like a few years ago when I moved into this apartment in Brooklyn. I wrote down three things, and the first two was get your book published. Second was get a humor piece published in the New Yorker, and those two things happened within a week of each other, like
We love to see it.
2 weeks ago. And I don't know if I manifested that. I don't know if I have any sort of incantation that I accidentally like put into existence, but it's like those things that like I have now that are there's all these amazing outlets that I was such a like paper out that I've worked with, but many ways I have to remember to not get unhealthy about it where I'm like, well, what do I do now? What's next? Like I have to keep pushing myself. And I did that. I used to say yes to everything. I didn't know how to say no, and I was overwhelming myself and making myself physically sick because I just didn't know how to stop. And now I'm like, and this is something that my therapist said. She was like, print all the stuff out that you're proud of, like the New Yorker, your paper, your columns. You have your book that's tangible, and like take a few fucking beats to like really appreciate it. And so it's good to have that drive to be like, okay, I want to start my next book. I want to write the next pilot, but I also have to like not, I have to be cognizant of like what my limits are. Because now, as I'm like getting older, like I have body pain and like my spine feels like it's on fire some days, and like I just have to sort of really, learn that there's physical limits, and I've had to learn that the hard way. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I think I'm a bit healthier, maybe. I don't know. I mean, time will tell. I'll let you know.
Please do. Please
It's
do.
another thing the jury's still out on.
Okay, deal. What is next? What do you want to, I mean, obviously you've got like a whole blitzy book thing to continue gracefully moving through, but what happens after that?
Yeah, well, I like that you think that this Earth is going to survive more than 3 more weeks.
I'm
But
fingers.
I'm gonna be optimistic and give it a good like few more months. But I'm gonna, like I said, I'm trying not to put too many things on my plate. I'm gonna finish this tour, this virtual tour, this week, and then I have a few more events coming up this fall. I'm really just trying to focus on promoting this right now because it's just where my mind is mentally. Among like everything else that's going on, like I can't really. It's hard for me to do anything right now, just with like, mental illness things and anxiety. There's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that requires my attention, and it's very limited. So I'm going to finish this out, and then, but this is going to, I don't know if I'm allowed to, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but there's been conversations with managers, friends, that this might make it to another medium. I'll keep it at that. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm gonna keep giving this book as much love as I can, keep nurturing it, getting it out there. But I'm definitely working on the next one.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with
Can you
that.
tell us anything more than that you're working on it?
It's gonna start. Yeah, it's gonna start where this book left off in terms of like. I mean, I sort of introduced the physical things that I've been going through in terms of mental health. So it's really going to explore diagnoses that I've been flirting with for the past few years, but it's gonna be it's gonna be essays. It's gonna be hopefully a humorous take on how trauma lives in the body, as humorous as that can be. But it's definitely going to be like, it's going to start where this left off. So this book ends, I mean, if you know the ending, the book ends on like, it's not a bow tie. I don't like to like say anything's like done. I don't like a happy ending. I like it to be like continual sort of narrative threads. So yeah, the next book's going to be essays. It's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be post nightlife, post partying days, just sort of, growing up and learning about my body and how it functions now. So I'll leave it at that because I'm still trying to like.
I'm intrigued. I'm tantalized.
Okay. Well, I admire your opinion, so maybe I'll send you an essay.
Yeah, do it.
When it's okay.
Social media, net positive or net negative? Think about misinformation. Think about Russia. Think about hacking. Think about trolls.
It's a lot. Yeah. Sam, I'm not smart. Stop asking these.
Think about the president. Think about, but tell me.
I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean,
net positive or net negative?
I can't, for me, like thinking about like the internet, I can't think about it in polarizing terms just because it's our reality. It just is. It's not going to go away. If anything, it's going to just continue infiltrating every single aspect of our lives. So for me, it's just what we're living in. And obviously how you use it, how you spread information. If you're vetting your sources, obviously this, you need to be vetting the sources and making sure that what you are putting out there is credible and what have you. So media literacy, if anything, that's something that we should all be focusing on and really sort of putting at the forefront, because especially now, like I remember a friend that recently passed had a fake GoFundMe for like my friends were raising money for like this mental health resource, and there was a bogus GoFundMe raising thousands of dollars, and it wasn't like people were donating to it, and it was just a shit show. But yeah, it's anxiety inducing. It's very bad. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like these next few months, it's gonna be nothing's good is gonna come out of it. I mean, not to get political, but
It'll be a challenging time.
yeah, we'll see what happens, but nothing good is gonna happen. Like,
I
even
think likely a time that's going to test many of us.
do you know what I mean? Like, even if
I
we're gonna
believe
go
you.
there, if he loses, there's gonna be a civil war. Like, I'll see you in the bunker, Sam. I'll bring snacks.
Please bring snacks, blankets, bottles of
Candles.
water,
Yes.
diptyque candles. Like, please bring the essential.
I like anything I can afford that. Okay, I'm a Yankee girl.
I need. I'm literally like the living embodiment of that. The famous drill tweet that's like, like candles, $6,000 a month. Like, someone please help me, my family's dying. Like,
Okay,
that's
well,
literally.
I'll open another credit card just to get you a candle.
Thank you. I really
caliber.
I appreciate that very much. I feel seen by this.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm here for.
I want to make sure we leave time to get some questions in from our lovely audience here. I'm gonna
do we have some?
well, I'm gonna say Q&A. Like, if you got questions, participants, please submit them. I can see them, and I want to I want conduit for your questions.
I opened up the chat, and
no, I know. Yeah.
These are all the paperback blurbs, and they're gonna be published. That's great. I'm obsessed with this person. Okay. Anyway.
Wait, where is the
I think do you see on the bottom right where there's like a little notification that says Q&A?
Yes, I do indeed. Well, in the absence of that, I'm going to keep asking you my own questions because I've got them. And family, if you feel inspired to share your questions, please do. I'm going to see them right up here on my screen. So talk to me about how you came to this title. It's a very strong title.
Thank you. Funny enough, it was actually sophomore year of when I was in Hofstra. I remember my really good friend Sophia actually called me that. She was like, "You're so shameless. You'll say anything for a laugh. You're born to be public." And it just stuck with me. I was like, huh, like I filed that. I was like, that's really strong. And I really love that. And I've kept it ever since. Like when I first got the idea for a book, I was like, that has to be the title. That is so good. Like, yeah. So I owe her probably a few royalty checks at this point. But yeah, it just came from her. And I really loved, because I felt really seen. And it sort of became a double-edged sword as this book grew up with me, because not only am I public about, the ridiculous things that I've, the hijinks and the glamour and what I've done in nightlife as a former club kid with, my friends and these, this colorful cast of characters that have become family. There's the dark underbelly that I shine a light on. I'm really public about my struggles. Obviously, there's a degree of which I'm comfortable sharing. And I was telling this, Lindy and I were talking about this. Lindy West, we did an event last week, and, people call her a confessional writer, but she also keeps a bit to herself. And I find that unintentionally, I do the same thing. It's just a way to self-preserve, I think. So yeah, there's definitely a lot that I'm willing to share, but if I'm not sharing, it's because I don't know how to yet, or I'm just getting used to this, or whatever it is that's brewing underneath the surface that's shareable or not is something that I still have yet to reconcile with. So these past few years dealing with like medical issues and family health issues and different types of trauma and how it literally lives in your body and how it manifests physically. I could have put that in Born to be Public, but I wasn't ready to. it just wasn't the right time. But now I'm finding my words and finding a way to talk about it. And that's just what I'm ready to share now. So I really just think it's a very visceral thing, but it's also very much conscious, and just a way to take care of your mind and spirit, especially in this oversharing of this abundance of oversharing and this invitation to constantly be like putting out things about yourself and content, which I get that there's this need for it. It's very economic, and it's just, you know, it's a call and response to our society. But I really think you have to, as much as you want to carve a space out for yourself out there, you need to carve a space out for yourself in here. So, and that's something I'm learning just now in these past few years. What was your question? I feel like I just totally like spun out of control.
Was my question about the title, or did you ask that already?
Oh yeah, it was about Born to. Thank you. Yeah, it was about Born to be Public. Yeah, so
I was like, did I ask something between the title question and that one? Okay,
always something so good. I'm like blown away.
I'm coming in hot.
I mean, I expected this. I did this to myself.
You really did. You said.
But I really just wanted an excuse to hang out with you, and I got what I wanted. So anyway, please.
And we made it happen.
Yeah.
Give me, as a closing thought, give me one gorgeous takeaway that you want a reader to come away with this book from. If there's one, you know, message that you wanted to impart, what do you think that message is? What do you want people to feel or hear?
Yeah, I mean, I really just want people to laugh at my stupidity. That's the surface of what I want. Like, if I can somehow use my like nature as a blubbering, uncouth idiot, that is ideally what I want people to get from it. But I also think like what I got, like what I've been hearing and receiving, and that's something that I think I wanted to include in this book as like what I want as a takeaway. I think it really is just sort of accepting the, I guess, totality of identity, right? We're many different things, and it's being okay with all those elements and learning to coexist with them, because ultimately they're all a part of you. Like, you know, my identity markers as a queer man, as a person living with mental illness and chronic pain and all these other things, like they're all a part of me. And that's sort of what I want people to sort of take away, that the parts that they have either shied away from consciously or unconsciously, they are worth your time and your value, because you are valuable, period. So, and those are all elements that make up, you know, who you are.
You're valuable, period.
Yeah.
Born to be Public, terrific book. Buy it now. If you don't have it yet, buy it. Buy it from Green Apple. Buy it. Support indies. God bless.
Yes.
And I think we can close out with that if nobody has any further questions.
I really want to get to Denise, because these are great just statements.
What is Denise responding to here?
She's responding to our conversation. Also, let's rewind really quick, and please, I mean, I'm hoping everyone here has Broken People and The Gilded Razor. I mean, please, like, it's inappropriate if you don't, and not to yell at the audience, but I will do what's necessary to get, you know, these book sales.
I appreciate it.
Also, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And Denise, you have made my night.
You were the queen of the Q&A.
Polish with kielbasas.
We gotta give it to you. Yeah, we gotta give it up to Denise.
Sam Lansky memoir, interesting. I concur.
Where's the lie? Where's the lie, babe?
Exactly.
None detected.
That scared the shit out of me. I really thought that was Denise popping up out of nowhere. I was like, she...
I think with that, we can turn it back over to our wonderful hosts at Green Apple Books. Green Apple, thank you so much for having us. Greg, thank you for asking me to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. I really appreciate it. This is a very fun conversation. I'm really glad to know, Greg, that you, one, sorry for scaring you, and also that you too watch Alias on your iPad to go to sleep. And Sam, always a pleasure.
When's the next conversation on that? Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's our next stop.
Exactly. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate everyone watching. And thank you, Green Apple and Sam, always.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks for tuning in.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Good night.
Bye.